So I've been thinking a lot about this Logan Paul Pearl the Pig situation ever since I found out about it yesterday, and I have some thoughts to share, and I'd also love to hear your thoughts on this situation. I think that it opens up a lot of really interesting conversations. So like I said, I found out about this yesterday. I was on Twitter and I started seeing some retweets of things about Logan Paul, and it was like, of course Logan Paul would do this to his pet pig. Is anyone surprised? My initial reaction, I was preparing for the absolute worst. I almost didn't even want to read about it, but I was of course curious as to what happened. So to recap, for those of you who are not familiar with the situation, Logan Paul, who is a huge YouTube personality, beyond YouTube at this point, has had some massive scandals in the past. And a lot of people think he's a terrible person. He apparently had a pet potbelly pig at some point in the last few years. I'm not sure exactly what year he got her, but her name was Pearl, and she was used in a lot of his videos. I'm not familiar with Logan's content, so I don't exactly know how she was used or how often she was used, but I know people were kind of referred to her as a clout pig, like he just got a pig because it was a trendy thing to do, and you know, for views and clicks and all that. Looking at these tweets, it looks like he got her in 2019, and it's not really lost on me that he ended up getting rid of her the same year that he posted these tweets. I feel like this would also be a good time to point out the scam of mini pigs, because they are not a real thing, or you know, teacup pigs. It's a breeder scam. It's a major issue because people will get a pig thinking it's a mini pig or a micro pig, and really it's not. And then when the pig grows beyond what the person was expecting, they often end up discarding them, and it just creates this terrible issue. And this is obviously what happened with Logan Paul. Esther the Wonder Pig is actually a story where this happened, but it had an incredibly happy ending for Esther and everyone involved. So check that out if you want a feel-good micro pig scam story. What sparked this whole controversy in the last few days is that the Gentle Barn, which is a farm animal sanctuary in LA, posted a TikTok about a pig that they had just rescued. They had gotten a call about a pig that was in very bad condition, and they found this pig that was in really bad condition, looked like she had not been taken care of at all, and she was next to another pig that was dead. Gentle Barn posts this TikTok, and all they said was, "We heard that this pig once belonged to a famous YouTuber." People quickly put together that this was Pearl the Pig, and people were like, Logan Paul, how could you do this to Pearl the Pig? Like, what fucking happened? So immediately people are outraged because they're associating, you know, the state that Pearl was found in with him, understandably so. And by the way, the TikTok was incredibly moving. I watched it, and at first I was like, I see what they're trying to do here with this like emotional music, I get it. And then by the end I was like, Pearl, I'm so happy you're okay. This is all based on what Logan has said since then, but apparently he parted ways with Pearl the Pig in 2020 because he was moving to Puerto Rico and he had to rehome her, and so he found a farm that seemed like they were a great farm and would take really good care of her, and she lived with him for about 10 months. He seems to think that she was very well taken care of in those 10 months, but how does he really know? I'm not sure. Then apparently that farmer sold their farm and moved and rehomed Pearl with another farm across the street from them. The farm across the street is where Pearl was eventually found. So we don't know who made the phone call, but it seems like someone made a phone call on behalf of Pearl. Sometimes in these situations, the farmer is the one to be like, yikes, I realized I have really not been taking care of these animals, and will make the call to a sanctuary, or maybe it was just a passerby or someone who just visited the farm. So obviously at some point Pearl was pretty severely neglected because her ears were sort of all torn up, and she also had an infected uterus. Okay, so everybody's outraged at Logan Paul. Here's where I stand on this. I feel like Logan obviously should have handled the situation differently, but I also think that this entire situation speaks to a few much larger issues that go beyond Logan Paul or this particular situation, and here's what I think those issues are. Number one is treating animals as disposable objects. When you acquire a companion animal, you are making a commitment to that animal for life. This means that you are responsible for that animal for the entirety of its life. for better or worse. No, I'm just kidding. I love my cats, obviously. If due to extraordinary circumstances that for some reason becomes impossible or implausible for a person, then it is my opinion that that person is responsible for finding a loving home for that animal and responsible for following up throughout the course of the animal's life. I actually think that with rehoming situations, contracts are a good idea of like, there's a contract of how the animal is going to be cared for, and if the new owner breaks that contract for any reason, then the animal has to be, surrendered to the former owner or surrendered to a rescue. If you're thinking, that seems like way too much work, that's way too intense, well, what do you think having a companion animal is? It's a huge commitment. It is like deciding to have a child. You don't just abandon and neglect the child if things don't go the way you thought they would. You do a lot of research beforehand. You make sure you're prepared. These are, should be the givens before acquiring a pet. It's a massive commitment, and if you're not ready for that, then don't do it. I also feel like we hear a lot of these sort of pet horror stories with celebrities, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I mean, sure, we're hearing about it more because these people are famous, and so we hear about their lives more, but also I think there's something with celebrities where they think they can just get a lot of pets because they have a lot of money and they're just like, I can do whatever I want, but then their schedules are super busy, they travel a lot, the animal's care ends up being transferred to various different people, and sometimes things slip through the cracks and something bad happens to the animal. Not saying that celebrities shouldn't get pets, but again, it's a huge commitment, and if you aren't able to put in that commitment in any way, including time, a massive time commitment, then maybe you're not a great candidate to become a pet parent. The second issue is that people don't seem to understand the difference between farms and farm sanctuaries. Farms can encompass anything from dairy and meat operations to petting zoos to hobby farms and many other things, and these are usually for-profit enterprises. And in any situation where profit is being made off of animals, exploitation is possible and I would say inevitable. Farm animal sanctuaries are not-for-profit charity organizations that are committed to rescuing animals and giving them the longest and healthiest and most comfortable lives possible. Any money that comes into these organizations, any profit is invested back into the animal's care and well-being. So I see it a lot where people are like, oh, I'm just gonna go visit this farm because it looks wholesome and cute and my child can like pet the animals, not realizing that they're actually visiting a petting zoo. And petting zoos often keep animals in horrific conditions. A lot of the animals that I have met at farm sanctuaries actually came from petting zoos. Because petting zoos are for-profit organizations, a lot of times it's just like, oh, we'll keep this baby cow here until it grows too big and it's not like cute and people don't want to pet it anymore, and then we send it off to slaughter. The third issue here is animals' use as content. As I mentioned, Pearl the pig was referred to as a clout pig, and a lot of people said Logan just got her to use in his content to get clicks, to get views. Animals being used in content really doesn't sit well with me, and as I mentioned before, if the animal is making the human behind the account money, or the humans behind the account money, the potential for exploitation goes way up. And I'm sure there's plenty of animal accounts where it is very wholesome and the owner is providing the best level care for the animal and just happens to also make content, but you just know that with the popularity of animal social media accounts that there are a ton of people that are just like getting an animal just to use it for content. So that's why for my sort of cute animal content, I gravitate toward farm sanctuaries. I even follow a cat sanctuary on Instagram. That is a charity, a rescue organization. It's called Furball Pet Sanctuary. It's literally a cat lover's dream come true, this sanctuary. I'd love to visit it someday. The fourth issue that has kind of come up for me is the overall cognitive dissonance that I am sensing in the reaction to this situation. I appreciate how passionately people feel and how defensive people feel over Pearl the pig. I also wonder how many of the people outraged by this situation and outraged at Logan Paul consume bacon or pork. People seem to be separating pet pig from food animal pig, which is really where the cognitive dissonance comes into play, because why be outraged about one thing when you partake in the other very similar thing? All pigs are sentient, emotional, intelligent beings and do not deserve the treatment that they receive in their use as food animals. I'm not saying what happened to Pearl isn't horrible and wrong, because it absolutely is, but I also hope this situation will open people's minds up to the cruel use of pigs, you know, in the food industry as well. Ideally, Logan Paul should have surrendered his pig to a farm animal sanctuary to begin with. I do think this truly was just a case of ignorance and naivete and wanting to believe the best in people. Unfortunately, as vegans, I think we all know that people are just terrible when it comes to animals, so I would never believe the best in any farmer. An email between Logan Paul and the Gentle Barn did get leaked, possibly, probably by Logan or someone on his team. In the email, he was thanking them profusely for rescuing her and also saying that he wants to financially contribute to Pearl's care. Now, I think that's great. If he writes them a big fat check, it would be a great outcome for the Gentle Barn. Like I said, this could have been, you know, just done for PR and to try to undo some of the damage to Logan Paul's already damaged image. So if I were being generous, I would say that this was a case of innocent ignorance on Logan's part, but I know a lot of people don't feel that way. He has had so many scandals in the past. I think people are just so used to him doing terrible things that they don't want to give him any sort of benefit whatsoever, which I totally understand. Like I said, I don't think he handled this situation perfectly, but it's far from the worst animal story that I've heard, like very, very, very far, unfortunately. I think people's tolerance for Logan Paul is already so low that just like anything that he does, and you know, obviously having to do with animals and animal neglect, people are going to be outraged by. In terms of like what Logan can do in this situation, he's already released a few tweets explaining the situation. He obviously reached out to the Gentle Barn, but like, let's get Logan Paul to go out to the Gentle Barn and volunteer for a day and turn that into a content opportunity. That would just be so great for the Gentle Barn in general, because as hated as he is, he still has a ton of followers who respect and admire him. This situation in general, I think, has overall been a net positive thing for the Gentle Barn. They're showcasing the amazing work that they do, and everybody's talking about them right now. And yeah, I think that they should totally kind of leverage this in their favor even more. Invite Logan out for a volunteer day. I think Logan should definitely go. I think that would look good for his image, and it would be good for the animals. It wouldn't undo the damage that was done to Pearl, but I'm also happy that this is at least a happy ending for Pearl, even if there were a few years of seemingly a lot of unhappiness for her. Overall, I hope that this was a learning opportunity for everyone. Pigs are intelligent, sentient creatures that shouldn't be exploited, whether it be for food, for content, or for any other reason.